Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Koss, founder of KevAdvoTech, and thank you for joining today. I am excited and delighted to introduce a special guest, Pam Weiss, who I'm going to let introduce herself in a moment and tell us a little bit about herself and her family. But I do want to share on the front end here, I was connected to Pam recently through a mutual friend. And what caught my attention was a few things. Number one, she has a daughter with special needs, Ingrid, that she's going to tell us about. But secondly, Ingrid, her daughter, works for IBM. And I spent 30 years of my career, the front end of my career at IBM. So we have something in common there as well. Pam's going to share a little bit about that. I think the focus of today, we're going to talk a little bit about Ingrid's story, and we're going to shift a little bit and talk about some of the challenges of independent living. So, Pam, thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me, Mike. I'm always thrilled to connect with others who are making a difference in the special needs space. And the needs vary so widely, and there's so many unaddressed challenges. And the more we all network together, the more we can get done as a community.
Absolutely. No, thank you. So tell us a little bit about your family.
Yeah, so our journey started. We have two children, my husband Rob and I, and our older child was very typical, big athlete, popular. And then I had my daughter who had all these special needs, and we always noticed how the parents would sort of go away, not want to invite her to things. And our challenges started fairly early with her. Around 2, she was diagnosed with several neurological disabilities, including a mild case of spastic diplegia, and a host of other things. So we spent a lot of her youth going back and forth to specialists, a lot of physical therapy, things like Botox shots in the legs, and things that some other families can probably relate to who have a lot of physical disabilities in the family. But what became more prominent as she started entering the school years is that there were some other things behaviorally that were going on that we couldn't quite put a finger on. She had a lot of social challenges, a lot of sensitivities and meltdowns. And it was around kindergarten, first grade, where we really started noticing there were a lot of issues, challenges in the school environment. So it was around that time, and after first grade, that we got a full workup with a psychiatrist and testing, and we came out of there with 2 competing diagnoses. One, she was clearly on the autism spectrum and also had ADHD. Number 2, she was also scoring as very high IQ. And so these gave me very conflicting challenges to work through, because in the school environment, they wanted to track her to special needs separate classes, at one time. And we said that's never going to work for her because she can handle intellectual challenges. So then you have that journey you start of, how do I mainstream my child but still get the help that we need? And of course, back in the days when she was doing this here in Michigan, there was no coverage in insurance for autism related services. Sure. So, like many families, it was a challenge to get the services we needed. And in the school environment, they don't train any of the aides that go and work with people. So you'd get a lot of people wouldn't know how to handle situations. The school was always trying to push back and lower the amount of services she was having. So there was constant interactions and support needed in the school environment.
So there's always a constant need to advocating for your child is a full-time job, right? And you quite often, at least what we've experienced, you hear a no or a maybe, and you constantly have to be pushing, because what you just described with Ingrid, the last thing you needed or wanted for her, right, is to set the bar low, right? Sounds like she has had absolutely some talents and skills, and set the bar high and challenge her, right? So,
Yeah.
so tell us a little bit more, as she progressed through school and into high school, and, I want to get a little bit into her college training or whatever, and how she landed at IBM, which is just amazing.
Well, I think a key part of our journey and maybe an encouragement I can offer to other parents is I did not hesitate to put her in various activities and situations where she was going to be in public. And so she had to learn to deal with the public and they had to learn to deal with her. And even though a lot of those situations were challenging, like she's in the ballet class and some days she participates awkwardly, other days she's just sitting in the corner. And we're taking her to the pool for the swim lessons. Some days are a good day, and some days she reacts to the water temperature, and we're having a meltdown in a public place. So I think a lot of it is just deciding that whatever type of embarrassment or discomfort you have in those situations is worth it in the long run. I can't emphasize that enough, because down the road, this has all helped her progress to the point where she could take on the challenges she now has in the workplace. We were always told early on in elementary school, again, you mentioned low expectations. I think we suffer from too many low expectations. We were always told she would probably have trouble getting through high school, and so of course, being the type of person I am, I said, well, you've now thrown down the gauntlet. We're going to show you that that's not going to be the case. So we did get her through high school, and we did recognize if she was going to go on to college that we would have to be within an arm's reach. At the time, we were living in Columbus, Indiana, and we were about an hour away from Indiana University. So our goal was to get her into a local place where we could reach her. And it was funny, before she went to college, we had those moments where she was telling all the neighbors how stressed out she was. And I'd have neighbors approaching me like, oh, she's really nervous about going. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I'm ignoring it. And we promised her, we said, we'll bring you home every single weekend. We'll bring you home in the middle of the week if we need to. So, we made all those promises. We did a lot of that in the beginning. And then I'm pleased to say that by the time we got to the holiday break, she got home, and there was a point at which she said, Mom, I'm bored. I'm ready to go back to school. And I said, that's amazing.
That's a huge step forward, right? So she had become pretty comfortable and acclimated at that point, it sounds.
Yeah, we co-authored an article at that time in a campus activities magazine about navigating the college space as a person on the autism spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot of things about finding your quiet places on campus, having accommodations with your teachers sometimes, getting a little extra assistance, getting organized with your things. Because a lot of it was she can do the work, but she can't organize herself doing the work. So that was some of the challenges. But where I feel like in general, the colleges have not maybe progressed enough yet, or where they could be adding services, is when it gets to the point where it's the end of the college journey and it's time for the job interviewing. I don't think there are really many partnerships or things with the companies coming on campus to interview, and that part of things was really not working out because there's such an overemphasis on what I call the emotional intelligence skills. You have to present well in an interview. There aren't really any exceptions to that, or understanding or accommodations that are made in the college interview process.
Well, and let's be honest, right? Interviews, generally speaking, are stressful enough for most of us, right? Let alone someone that has some of their own unique challenges. So how did Ingrid then manage through that and eventually get through the hiring process? What's the backstory on that, Pam?
Well, it's actually a pretty interesting story, we feel. Back when she was finishing up college, I had gone back to get my MBA at Indiana University's Indianapolis campus. And I had, at the time, besides studying my MBA, was interested in social entrepreneurship. So I was taking some classes from the School of Public and Environmental Affairs. And in one of them, I ended up researching and finding this company called Specialist Turn, which is they're from their Danish firm. And they were organized by a founder who had a son on the autism spectrum that had issues with employment. And they designed a model to basically assist companies with the hiring process, the screening and hiring process for people on the spectrum. Had I not researched them in college, we would not have probably found this opportunity, because frankly, the interview process was not working out. She was unemployed for, almost, I don't know, 9-10 months after college. And I stumbled upon Specialist Turn starting a partnership with IBM. And it was just, and I would say, I feel like there must have been some divine intervention here that I'm very grateful for. Their starting campus was going to be East Lansing, where the IBM was. And so what happened was she went through a screening process, and there were probably about 25 to 30 people that went through this. And then a group of about 8 were selected for hiring, 6 to 8 in their rounds. And so, but she had to be up there for a month of doing activities that Specialist Turn and IBM were jointly doing to work through who might work out in this environment. And then there was also, I have to give credit to the Autism Alliance of Michigan. After the hiring process, they provided HR support. So managers working with Ingrid and her colleagues could also have both the employee and the manager had this reference point when things were going on to ask questions. I'm not sure what to do in this situation, et cetera.
Wow. That's that's pretty amazing. That's interesting. So she's been there how long now? How many years is it now?
4.5 years.
Okay, great. And I did see, I've watched it twice now. Got a wonderful YouTube video out there that with Ingrid, and there's a few others as well, I think, that were hired by IBM, and just talks a bit about their story. So Ingrid specifically, is she still, I thought I saw something, is she a technical writer, or reviews technical writing or testing, or what is her specific day-to-day duties there?
Yeah, she's what you'd call a test specialist. So she does also do technical writing around what was the testing or requirements. So she does document systems, which I'm grateful for. I always run into systems that aren't documented. So that's something, a much underappreciated skill.
Sure. Oh yeah, absolutely. So let's shift the conversation a little bit. When I first met you recently, we had some interesting discussion around some of the current challenges, right? You mentioned, so now Ingrid is living on her own in an apartment, I assume. Is it an apartment in near East Lansing?
Yes. So one of her challenges is that we never were able to get past the hurdle of driving. So we tried for 5 years. And again, everyone has their different challenges. For her, that was a hurdle we couldn't really overcome. It was just too much stimuli for her, the driving. So she really wanted to live somewhere very close to the office. Of course, now the office has moved, but the originally, until the last year, she could actually walk to work from her apartment. So she wasn't having to Uber and so forth all that much, except maybe in the dead of winter. And so she basically has a 1-bedroom apartment, in a building. She's on the 2nd floor, and we've helped her with things like getting her a cart so she could, walk to the grocery store and come back. She does use the bus system in East Lansing. I think we're fortunate so many cities don't have the transit, but because East Lansing is a college town for MSU, she does use that as well to get around.
Okay. But now you and your husband don't live within, a quick 10-minute or 15-minute drive, right, to check in on her. You're
No,
And
we're more like an hour and 45 minutes, hour and 40 minutes away.
yep,
So that makes it really challenging to have those check-ins with her. And she's also more likely to take a bus and come out our way and have us come drop her back off. But yeah, and with my husband and I both working full time, that becomes a challenge to provide the support that she needs at this stage.
sure. Can you describe a little bit, PM, give us, the audience an idea? So Ingrid's needs as far as some of the gaps and, either services that may be out there, right? That can provide some of these assisted needs she might need. I mean, what's available, what's not available? If you were to write a short menu of, look, if we had these 4 or 5 things for Ingrid available to help, what would they be? I'm just trying to get a sense. And the reason I'm asking, I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit here. Here at KevAdvoTech, we're always looking out in advance for some trends in technology advancement, right? Specifically around things that can help someone with special needs. I'm certainly not saying ever that technology can solve all our needs, but with some pretty cool advancements, over the recent years, I think there are some things, right, that can at least make our lives as not just someone with the special need, but also the parent and caregivers, right? Give them a little sense of comfort. So what are some things that if you could have someone or something check in on her, what does she need?
This may sound silly, but her number one issue is caring for the apartment or lack thereof. And the discussions we've had around that have been, she gets distracted, she's too stressed out after working, she mentally needs to regroup, and then there's always something that's in her words shiny and shinier than taking care of her apartment. So the challenge we have is things are not just in disarray, think of an episode of Hoarders, but they're also filthy sometimes. So you'll have, like the last time we were there was a bug problem in an area of her apartment, so we were calling in, for assistance with that. So we've tried to tackle that with say, hey, will you accept a cleaning service coming? And she was very, very opposed to that. So there's this gap in between, and plus the cleaning companies always want to be on a very regular schedule. What she needs is somebody that can check in sort of in short bursts, visit for 20 minutes and help her get started on something and then leave. She can't handle when the times that we come up, we of course want to get a lot done when we're there. Let's have a 2-hour cleaning spree. And then, by the end of the first hour, you can just sense the blood pressure going up. She's starting to melt down. It's a combination of, well, I feel guilty, I didn't do it. And then it's also, I can't deal with it for this long. So I think if there was some type of a service where somebody's kind of you call them a personal assistant, I don't know what you'd say, but that would come in and check in like every couple of weeks and say, what do you need help with? I noticed that your bathroom counters are an issue. Can we just address that today? Just in cutting it out into bite-sized pieces that she can mentally handle at a time. And they're just really, unless they're living in some kind of assisted living facility, which
Right.
again, we have a lot of people that aren't quite functioning at the same, independence level that she is. We've always been careful to let her live to her highest level possible. So we've, resisted doing that sort of thing for her, but there really isn't a service like that available that I'm aware of.
No, you're right. I mean, I can't even think of one myself, on in that area. How about what's Ingrid's capabilities in meal prep and things like that? Is that an issue, or she's fine in that area?
She is actually a very good cook because that's something she enjoys. She constantly sends us pictures. Although I will say one thing that's helped her be organized with meals. She
Mhm.
really likes using those deliver at home meal kits. So she has a HelloFresh subscription and she really enjoys that. And she also uses a lot of DoorDash kind of things coming to her. So that we've done pretty well with. Where I worry is are we tracking the leftovers and things? Are they properly stored? Sometimes,
Right.
I'll see like, oh, here's the cooking oil out on the counter. Well, that doesn't have a lid anymore. Well, it can't sit out on the counter without a lid, so there's
Yep.
some of those type of things that happen. But where she also gets challenges, another area I would say is in handling bills and things coming in the mail. We have set up a lot of automated bills for her regular, say, electric and things like that. But say, for instance, the rent changed. She had an automated payment set up. She got a notification the rent went up. She didn't go in and take the next step and adjust her automated payment. So then my husband's getting a call because he was also listed as a backup person on the lease. Oh, well, of course she has the money to pay it. She just didn't take care of it.
Sure.
The last time we were there, she had an emergency situation a year ago where she fell and broke her wrist. Fortunately, she called 911, but that would ended up being an ambulance, going to the hospital for it, etc. And when we were cleaning out things in her apartment a few weeks ago, I found an unopened ambulance bill. And she's like, well, I really wasn't sure what to do with that. So I just left it, and of course it was in a huge pile of other things. So there's always that, how do we keep things from becoming overdue or just ignored in the pile of stuff?
Right. To back up a little bit, Pam, on some of these household tasks, right? Just keeping on top of, the apartment cleanliness and orderly look, right? Is Ingrid, does she work better with reminders if there's some sort of reminder there, or is it just it's not interesting enough to get her attention, and that quickly goes to the bottom of the care or the to-do list? Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that because one of the things that we discussed is so my job, I'm a project management professional. So, of course, I think of all kinds of ways to organize things. I literally do this for a living.
Yep.
And I actually had thought about using one of my online project tools, like, a tab on a team site that would send a notification that, it's time to go dust your house, or, hey, it's time to clean the bathroom. I said, how would you feel about, and again, we struggle with the roles, like how much are she going to accept? Because I could start talking to her about her household things and ask her what she do. And you could clearly immediately hear the tension going up, when you're on a call with her and trying to talk about it. And her honest answer was, well, that would work for a couple of weeks, and then I would ignore that too. So at least you're honest.
You gotta love an honest answer from your kid, right?
Yeah. Just like the honest answers in the interviews, when everybody would say, and I think the general public always thinks you can train them out of certain behaviors that is sort of not really how it works. She would always say in the job interviews, well, I have to be honest, which to her includes sharing everything on her mind at that moment. So when they ask her, where do you see yourself a couple of years from now, she's like, well, definitely not here, would be her answer. Like something like that. She's, well, I have to be honest. I said, well,
Yep.
You don't have to share everything. You could say, I'd like to be in this kind of technology or have greater responsibilities. But
Right.
to her, it's like, well, I'm just, it's ripping.
I love it. That's too funny. That is too funny. Well, I'm just thinking out loud as we wrap this part of the discussion up, Pam. It definitely, I agree. There's certainly services gaps out there. It sounds like Ingrid, and I'm sure many others could also use and would love to take advantage of, right? Whether it's apartment cleaning, reminders, bills, the whole admin part of what we deal with day to day in life, and how to take care of that in a more orderly manner, because that is important, right? And so a couple things out there, but I'd like to let our audience chew on this a little bit too, and maybe we can get some discussion going online on the website, right? And maybe we'll get some interesting input from some folks and some other ideas. But coupled with that, I'm again back to the technology angle. I'm always looking for something that might assist, and I'm meeting some pretty interesting, dynamic, small companies that have ideas on how to apply technology, specifically AI, right? Artificial intelligence, to do some predictive kind of things and prevent something from becoming a problem, right? For someone with a disability or special needs. So we'll see. I mean, I think there's some opportunity out there. But before I let you go, I would like to hear a little bit about you and your company. I know that you personally and your company are working to employ special needs individuals in your field and do something interesting and a little more challenging and exciting. Can you tell us a little bit about those efforts?
Yes, and before I do, real quickly, I think technology could be a help in another area that Ingrid has, which is not been a problem, but you never know, and that's really in mental health, either in things like, as the adult, you can't really make sure they're compliant with medications that they're taking.
Yeah.
But could there be sensory data taken that may alert you to when some type of meltdown might be coming, or some, type of telling when they're in distress? I can tell when I'm on a phone call. I got a phone call on vacation last year that was like, she was clearly we were hitting a mental valley and we need to come home and spend some time with mom and dad. But is there a way to sense that?
No, well, that's interesting. And I think you and I may have chatted a little bit about that, because I shared one of my articles with you, one of my articles from a few months ago. Our son, Kevin, who has a TBI, traumatic brain injury, he has an expressive disorder, and he can't tell us when he's in pain or something. And yes, we deal with, unpredicted meltdowns in public. And by the way, I love what you said earlier. I'm a firm believer, and we've been doing that with Kevin for many years since his accident. Take him out in public, right? It may present some certain risks and, potential public meltdown in that, but I'm a firm believer that if you expand his or their circle of comfort, right, their comfort zone a bit, then yeah, eventually when they're on their own or kind of semi on their own, they'll be able to adapt a little bit more. So yeah, we deal with some of the same things. So no, I think there could be some technology breakthroughs, or there's got to be some applicability there, right, to be able to do that. I'd love to be able to predict what's going on in Kevin's brain before a meltdown occurs, right? There's got to be some physiology things happening that would trigger something. So your point, Pam, about medication and things like that, yeah, I think there could be some possibilities there that would help the situation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because in addition to being autistic, she's also, as a young adult, was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So we're always having those mental swings and trying to determine what's needed, and depending on the state that she might be in.
Yep, absolutely. So keep going though. We're this is fascinating. We can go for a while here, but let's shift as we start to wrap up, I want to hear a little bit more about what you're doing and your company's doing to bring special needs folks into, is it the legal side of the workforce here, the business? Describe it a little bit.
Yeah, so I work for the Orleans group of firms. We're located, our headquarters is in Troy, but we're a multi-state. We have a law firm, Orleans PC, a title company, e-title, and I work as part of Rev Legal, where we do legal process consulting. And one of the initiatives that I brought to our firm has been to have our HR department has started a partnership with the Autism Alliance of Michigan's Upbound at Work. And basically, I made the case, we work in the legal space and we have to be we're highly regulated. We do a lot of default real estate work. There are a lot of regulations, things where you have to do it the same way every time. And one of the needs that we have is basically for legal specialists or legal processors, or whatever you want to call them. And there's a lot of working with our case management system and with our title abstracts that we have, because we also have real estate title companies. So there's a lot of data we gather from title abstracts that requires a lot of data entry and following rules about what gets entered, what doesn't get entered, and why. And I basically made the case that, look, you really should be looking at ways to apply a neurodiverse population to some of this work, because as you and I know, there is a huge amount of underemployment with people on the autism spectrum. You get people now, like my daughter, who have, a community college degree, a college degree, even a master's degree. There are people that had a master's degree, an IBM program that Ingrid was in, that they were doing what you were saying, you're clerking at the grocery store, bagging the groceries. And a lot of people, again, suffer from these low expectations. Let's say, hey, everyone's employed. Well, are they employed to the level of their capabilities? We have set way too low of a bar.
Yep.
And so Upbound at Work is brought us some candidates for legal processor positions. And the reason why I felt like this is a really perfect opportunity is because, one of the things that I learned, we're both raising Ingrid and doing some studying, is that there are a lot of people on the spectrum like to do things in a standard way. And whereas a lot of us would say, that's boring to us, I want to go do 10 different things. For some people on the spectrum that might be in an office employment situation, making sure to follow things the right way and having an ability to see things that differ from the norm, that are like that pattern recognition and capability can be highly, attuned in individuals on the spectrum. And so to find that, hey, there's a problem with this thing in the legal document, you're going to have a problem.
They'll catch it. They're apt to catch something better than we could. Right.
And that's how, my daughter comes up with different testing scenarios than the ones given to her sometimes, so I thought this is a really great, if you provide the right training, this is a population that will be very consistent, in their product delivery. So I'm like, this is a bonus. This is a value add to our legal business. Sure. So we have now, and the way that the program works is the Upbound at Work folks at the Autism Alliance, they are involved for mostly maybe the first few months. So they'll basically, kind of have a trial period where they're employed by Upbound at Work, and then they can transition into regular full-time employment. And we already have hired 4 legal processors for our law firm. And I am pleased to say, our chief litigating attorney gave me some really positive feedback recently. One of them is working with their debt collection software, and his consistency of work product is great. I have a big project that I'm starting soon that will involve nuisance abatement lawsuit filing and things, working with the Detroit Land Bank Authority. So we have all of these, a whole series of steps behind the scenes that involve a couple of our title system, our case management system, working with the land bank system. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to need legal processors. And so I actually had an interview this week with a candidate. And the way it worked is the candidate was on the phone, someone from Upbound was on the phone, or on the phone. I say on the phone, on Teams.
Sure.
And
Yep.
so we were all, so they were assisting, like asking questions that maybe the candidate wasn't, thinking of. And I had my thinking cap on and saying, I'm not going to try to judge the social skills of this employee. And again, when you think about it, someone who's behind the scenes doing technical processing, does that person really need to, have the same personality as your sales guy? I don't think so. So I have a very strong candidate, and hopefully I will be part of the change in helping people move into office employment.
That is awesome. That's awesome, Pam. Boy, you should feel good about that. As I think about this conversation as we're wrapping up here, I see a couple future podcasts out there. There's so many directions we could go in. I'd love to hear more as things develop on your work front with this. I think that's awesome. Let's get more those with special needs, get them more involved and give them opportunity to actually excel up to their capabilities, right?
Yeah, and a couple of thoughts on that too. One, we have a lot of companies now that are emphasizing diversity in their supply chain, diversity in their employment. This needs to be part of that grouping. And I think a lot of people don't move forward because they're afraid they won't get it right. I just want to offer encouragement and say, whatever you're doing will be better than what was there before. Try things. The idea of having maybe temp employment, so everybody feels like they're, managing risk. Ask for help. There are groups like that out there. There are parents like us that can help navigate what are the things you might see. I've had a couple companies come in and ask me to advise them on setting up internship programs. I think programs like that are a great way to start.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. And I'm also, we'd love to check in on you down the line and hear how Ingrid is doing. And more importantly, coupled with Ingrid is, hey, let's see if we can get some advancements going on the technology front and some folks hearing about some services gaps out there and opportunities to fill those gaps for us. So I think this is great, right? We've got to continue to raise the awareness of these wonderful special needs folks in our lives, and they deserve to live their best life. So thank you. I appreciate your help in that cause, and I really appreciate it. So Pam, thank you again for your time. Best wishes to you and your family, and I hope to chat with you again soon.
I hope so too.
Great. Take care, everyone, and thank you for joining today.